Hello everyone, we are starting with chapter 3, applying rational numbers. Now remember, numbers, those are numbers that can be written as fractions, that when the fractions are converted to decimals, they have two characteristics. The first is that the decimals terminate, like 0.25 or negative 3.12. Okay, so they stop, they terminate. Or the second characteristic that they have is if it's a fraction that's converted to a decimal, is that the decimal repeats. And so that would be like 0.333, but you just write it as 0.3 and you put that little line on top, which is called a vinculum. Or it could be something like negative 2.34, and both the 3 and the 4 repeat. So these are the two characteristics of rational numbers. But like what we talked about before, rational numbers can also be natural numbers. I'm going to use that. Remember, that's 1, 2, 3, so on. They can be whole numbers. And remember, the only addition to whole numbers is that they are natural numbers, but they add the number 0. And then rational numbers, they are also integers. And remember, integers are positive whole numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 3, but also negative. So like negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1. Those are integers. Positive and negative whole numbers. And then you have the rational numbers, which are the ones that we just talked about. Those are numbers that can be rational numbers written as fractions, but when they're converted to decimals, those decimals either terminate or they repeat. And so those are rational numbers, and those are the type of numbers that we're going to be talking about in this particular chapter, and we're going to be applying those. But rational numbers, they include integers, they include whole numbers, and they also include natural numbers. So that's just a real quick review. It's always really important that whenever you're reading words, you understand what they mean. So when you say applying rational numbers, you know that we're talking about natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, and also the fractions where the decimals can terminate or they repeat. So when you see that, you know all of this just by seeing those two words. So that's what we're going to be working on in chapter 3. To get started in lesson 1, we're first going to be adding and subtracting decimals. So we're just going to go over that. So whenever you're adding and subtracting decimals, you can use a place value chart. So we have these little tables here just to help in the process of getting started. So when we're adding, let's say 3.48 plus 27, the first step is to line up the decimals. And that's really important, okay? So that's what we're going to do. 3.48, so this is in the ones place, this is the tenths, this is in the hundredths. So I'm going to line up the decimals. So 3 is going to go in the 1 spot, 4 is going to go in the tenth spot, this is the decimal, and 8 is going to go in the hundredth spot. And it's plus 2.7. So 2.7, that's in the 1 spot. 2.7 is in the 10th spot. Okay, so there we go. That's how you line up the decimals. It's really important when you're adding and subtracting that the decimals line up like that. Okay, now what you can see is there's nothing there. If there's nothing in this place here, then you just add a 0. Okay, so that's what the first step to adding and subtracting decimals is, just number 1, line them up. Now, once you have them lined up, then what you're going to do is you're just going to add them. So I'm going to rewrite this, 3.48 plus 2. 2.70. So this is the second step. The second step is to add. Just add the numbers and make sure that you put a decimal point in the answer. So you just put the decimal right there. And then we just add away. So we have 8 plus 0 is 8. We have 4 plus 7 is 11. You write the 1 and carry the 1 up here. And we have 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 1 is 6. And so that is our answer, 6.18. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to estimate and check and see if this seems reasonable. So if we were to estimate 3.48, just to see if our answer is in the right ballpark. It's always, I like to call it math street smarts. It's always great to have math street smarts. So we're going to look at 3.48. I would say 3.48 is definitely going to round to 3, okay? And 2.7 is going to round up to 3. So if we estimate, we really have 3 plus 3, which is 6. And our answer is 6.18. So we can say, hey, you know what? Our answer is about where our estimation is. So we know that 6.18 is a reasonable answer, okay? So if you were to estimate both of these numbers, and this estimates to 3 and 3, and you added 3 and 3, and you got 6, but your answer was like 28, you would know, hey, something is way off. And so it's always really, really smart to, when you get done, just estimate. Give a real quick estimation just to see if your answer is in the ballpark of what it should be. All right, perfect. Let's go over here. Now we're going to do some subtraction. So the first step is the same. You need to line up the decimals. Okay? So I'm going to put 68 down, and this is in the ones place and this is in the tens place. So I just put 68 here. All right, and then subtracted by 5. This is in the ones and this is in the tenths place. So the 5 goes here, put a decimal, and the 9 in the tenths place, okay? Now, since there is a 9 in the tenths place, I need to put a 0 in for a placeholder right there. So it's going to be 68.0, which is the same thing as 68, minus 5.9. And then from here, that is just the first thing, which is lining up the decimals, the first step. Now we're going to move on to the second step, which is the subtraction, and make sure you put the decimal point in your answer. So I'm going to rewrite these real quick. So we have 68.0, and that's going to be subtracted by 5.9. Okay, so we're just going to subtract. So this 0, we have to borrow to make this 0 into a 10. So I'm going to borrow from the 8 and make that a 7. And the 1 goes there. And so we have 10 minus 9, which is 1. I drop down the decimal place. It's all lined up. And then we go 7 minus 5, which is 2. And then 6 minus nothing is just 6. So our answer is 62.1. But what we're going to do in step 3 is we're going to estimate to see if this, to check it to see if it seems reasonable. So 68, you know, we could just leave it as 68. That would be fine. So 68 minus 5.9 is going to round to 6. So we have 68 minus 6. 8 minus 6 is 2, and just 6. So 62 is the estimate answer, and our real answer, the actual answer, is 62.1. So they're very, very close. So that means that 62.1 is a reasonable answer. All right. So now it is your turn. I want you to go ahead and try out these problems. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, this isn't the right sheet. I'm sorry. This is the right sheet. 1, 2, 3, and 4, you need to fill out the tables. And then 5, 6, and 7, you're actually going to practice lining up the decimals yourself without a table, okay? So where's our friend the pause dragon? Oh, here he is. Okay, so go ahead and pause. When you get done, press play, and we'll see how you did. All right, we are back. let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is to line up the decimals. So this is 19.67, and 8 is in the ones, 8.45, and we're adding. So we're just going to add these two decimals. So we have 7 plus 5, which is 2, carry the 1. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11, carry the 1. This one, I'm going to group the 9 and the 1, that's 10, and then plus 8 is 18. So write the 8 and carry the 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. And I got to drop down that decimal place. So the answer for this one is 28.12. And if we went ahead and estimated 19.67, I'm going to round it to the nearest 1. So that 6 is above 5, so it's going to round that 19 up to 20. And 8.45, 4 is not bigger than 5, so that's going to just keep it as 8. So 20 plus 8 is 28, and that really seems like it's in the same ballpark. So we're on the right track. Okay, I hope you got that one right. Make sure that you also estimate. So you do the problem and you estimate. So if you didn't estimate, go ahead and pause the video, go back through the problems, estimate, and then make sure that your estimates follow your answers. All right, on to number 2. So we have 9.36. 9.36 minus 7.29. 7.29. So we're just going to subtract. Right now, this 6 is not big enough, so I am going to have to borrow from the 3, make that a 2, and now it's 16. Take away 9, which is 7. We have 2, take away 2, which is 0. Drop the decimal, and 9 take away 7, which is 2. So our answer is 2.07. Now let's go ahead and estimate and check and see if that seems reasonable. So 9.36, we look at this to round it to the nearest 1, and this 3 is not big enough to round the 9 up, so the 9 stays. And then we look at 7.29. This 2 has to be a 5 or above to round that up to an 8, and it's not. So it's just going to be 9 minus 7, which is 2, and that really seems like a reasonable answer. So 2.07, very, very close. Okay, on to problem number 3 and 4. So we're doing subtraction. This is the tens and ones, so 25.36 subtracted by 9.7. So the 9 goes in the ones place. Remember, we're lining up those decimals, 9.7. There's nothing here, so we need to add a 0. Okay, and now we're just going to subtract. So 6 take away 0 is 6. 3 take away 7, we need to borrow for that one. So I'm going to borrow, make that a 4, make that a 13. 13 take away 7 is 6. Drop the decimal. And 4 minus 9, we need to borrow again, so making that a 1. So now it's 14 take away 9, which is 5, and then that 1 drops down. So our answer is 15.66. Let's go ahead and estimate. So 25, we're going to round it to the nearest 1, which means we look here at this 0.3, and it's not a 5 or a bigger, so that stays as 25. And then 9.7, we're rounding it to the nearest 1. That 7 is 5 or bigger, so it's going to round that 9 up to 10. So we're going to subtract 10. And 25 minus 10 is 15. And so that's really, really close to 15.66. So we know that our answer is correct. Okay, on to number 4. We're adding. We're going to go ahead and line up the decimals. So 12.89 and 37 decimals are all lined up, 07. And now that we have them lined up, we're going to add. So 9 plus 7 is 16, right? The 6 carry the 1. 8 plus 0 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Drop that decimal down. 2 plus 7 is 9. 1 plus 3 is 4. And so our answer is 49.96. And let's go ahead and estimate to check. So if we have 12.89 rounded to the nearest 1, this 8 is bigger than a 5, so it's going to round the 2 up to 13. So we have 13, and then added to 37.06 0, 7. This is not a 5 or above, so it's just going to stay at 37. And then we add 3 plus 7 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And 50 is really, really close to 49.96. So that just shows that our answer is correct. Okay, on to 5, 6, and 7. So for these ones, we are going to be writing them down on our own. So the first thing I'm going to do is just write 34.71. And then I'm going to line up those decimals. So it's going to be 9.19. And then I'm just going to add. So 1 plus 9 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And then that decimal just carries straight down. 4 plus 9 is 13. Carry the 1. And we got 1 plus 3, which is 4. So that's our answer, 43.90. Now let's go ahead and estimate to check. So I'm going to round this to the nearest 1. We have 34.7. This 7 has to be a 5 or above, and it is, so it's going to round that 4 up to a 5. So it's going to be 35 plus, we look at the 9, rounded to the nearest 1. We look here, and this has to be a 5 or above, and it's not, so the 9 just stays as a 9. And then we add. 9 plus 5 is 14, write a 4, carry the 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. And 44 is really, really super close to 43.9, so we know that we're right. And when you're doing this problem, I should have noticed this, but I didn't. This 0 is not really needed. So you can really just write your answer as 43.9. So, yeah. Okay, on to number 6. Here we go. We're just going to line up the decimals. We're subtracting. So we have 57.06, and that's subtracted from 27. Make sure the decimals are lined up. 38. Okay. And we're going to subtract. This 6 is not big enough, so we need to make the 6 bigger. We need to borrow, but we can't borrow from 0. So we have to borrow from the 7, making this a 6. That's going to make this a 9, and that 16. 16 take away 8 is 8. 9 take away 3 is 6. And 6, oh, can't do that. Got to borrow again. So it's going to make that a 4. 16 take away 7 is 9. And 4 take away 2 is 2. So we have our answer, 29.68. But we need to estimate and see if our answer is correct. So 57.06, this is a 0, so that's just going to stay as 57 when we round it to the nearest ones. Subtracted by 27.38, we're going to round it to the nearest ones. This 3 is not a 5 or above, so that means just 27 is just going to stay as it is. So we subtract those. 7 take away 7 is 0. 5 take away 2 is 3. And if we look, 30 is really, really close to 29.68, so that means that our answer is correct. Okay, on to the next one. Problem number 7, 48.3 plus negative 10.73. So we kind of have a little bit of a, like when we were doing the addition of the integers. What we want to do is we're going to look at this problem. Is 48 positive? Yes, it is. Is 10.3, what is that? That is negative. So we have a positive and a negative number. So whenever you have a positive and a negative, the signs are different, so you take the difference. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the difference between 48.3 and 10.73. We have to line up those decimals. There's nothing here, so we need to add a 0 there. Okay? And the 0 is not big enough, so we need to borrow from this 3, making it a 2. 10 take away 3 is 7. And the 2 is not big enough to, so we need to make it bigger and borrow from the 8, making that a 7. And that's going to be a 10. So 12 take away 7 is 5. The decimal place comes down. 7 take away 0 is 7. And 4 take away 1 is 3. So our answer is 37.57. Now, whenever we're dealing with positive and negative numbers, we need to figure out, is our answer going to be positive or is it going to be negative? So we look at these two numbers, 48.3 and 10.73. Which number is bigger? And 48.3 is bigger and it's positive, so that means our answer is going to be positive. Now let's go ahead and estimate and check. So we have 48.3. We're going to round it to the nearest ones. So this 10th place would have to be 5 or above, and it's not. So it's just going to stay as 48. And then we look at 10.73. We're going to round to the nearest one, so we're going to look at the 7, and it needs to be a 5 or above to round it up, and it is. 7 is bigger than a 5, so that's going to round up to 11. And just like the previous, this is a positive, this is a negative. The signs are different, so we're going to take the difference. So that means we're going to subtract the 2. 8 take away 1 is 7. 4 take away 1 is 3. And then we look at both the numbers. Which one's bigger? 48.3 is bigger. It's positive. That means our answer is going to be positive 37. And 37 is super close to 37.57. That means our answer is correct. So if you got all those right, you did amazing. You did a great job. Good job. Good job. And we will see you next time. All right. Bye.